Breath of the Wild 2 is still on the way. With the announcement of Age of Calamity, all eyes have been on this Zelda spin-off in the build-up to its release next week. But make no mistake, the Zelda series still has a next step after the prequel, a long-awaited sequel with a whole lot riding on it. Breath of the Wild redefined Zelda, and with Breath of the Wild 2, this is their first chance to build on all that the groundbreaking 2017 title introduced. And not only that, but also build upon the extremely interesting story that this prequel seems to be setting up. It's been a while since we last talked about Breath of the Wild 2 on this channel, because as I mentioned earlier, it's currently playing second fiddle to the soon-to-be-released Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. But the game is still in active development, and based on the suggested timeline of said development, starting shortly after the Champion's Ballad DLC all the way back at the end of 2017, the game is rounding its third year of development. For a game said to be using the same engine, assets, and even world, there's a good chance that means it might soon be reaching completion. So what can we expect from this game? When can we expect this game? And does the existence of Age of Calamity change any of this? Hey everybody, it's Xeno here, and it's been a while since we had to talk about Breath of the Wild 2. I mean, not much has changed though. There's been no new trailer, no new information. The only thing we got was a quick tease when Eiji Aonuma revealed Age of Calamity. To quote what he said exactly, in order to make the vast world you've enjoyed exploring in the original game even more impressive, the team is working hard on its development. He also mentioned we'd have to wait a bit longer for more updates, but the thing is, that wait has been pretty easy to swallow because we've been distracted by Age of Calamity, a game that came out of nowhere. I mean, a game that's a Zelda Musou crossover again in the vein of Hyrule Warriors, but it also tells a story 100 years before Breath of the Wild, the story Breath of the Wild tried to tell, but couldn't. The game's shaping up to be amazing. It comes out next week, and I've done plenty of videos on it already if you want to hear more about those opinions, but what does it mean for Breath of the Wild 2? What does this prequel before Breath of the Wild mean for the sequel to Breath of the Wild? Is Breath of the Wild 2 even a sequel anymore? We don't know these things, but that's what we're going to talk about right now. So of course, if you played the Age of Calamity demo that came out on the eShop a few weeks ago, you know about the big twist that they threw right in our face, which is time travel. It's a big part of the Age of Calamity story as far as we know so far, that Egg Guardian goes back in time to basically fix something. What he's fixing, we don't know, but he's there to save Zelda. That's the context that has been given. The thing is, how far are they going to pull that? The whole discussion has been raised if this is another timeline split, which could then lead to Breath of the Wild 2 not being a sequel, but an alternate reality. Now personally, I really don't want this. I want Breath of the Wild 2 to be an actual sequel. I want Age of Calamity to be an actual prequel. I want this to be a cohesive story, not one that zigs and zags and makes two different outcomes from one prequel. But it's up for debate if that's what is actually going to happen right now. If you go back and listen to me in some of the older Age of Calamity videos that came out around the announcement, I talk about how I don't think that Age of Calamity is going to have much of a bearing on Breath of the Wild 2. I think they're going to be separate stories that are only connected through Breath of the Wild. But it's up for debate now. This could be a really big part of how the story changes now, how the new elements being introduced in Age of Calamity might have a direct impact on what we see in Breath of the Wild 2 now. Because what I'm seeing is another side of the story of 100 years ago that we weren't told in Breath of the Wild. A side that was never explored, but seems to link pretty close to what might be happening in Breath of the Wild 2. We see this hooded figure, which is most certainly some kind of connection to Ganondorf. There's too much going on there for it not to be. They have the crown, they have the malice eye, they have this Gerudo imagery on them as well. They have some kind of connection to this corpse, I believe. We'll have to wait till the game actually comes out to know the full story and how this is going to impact it, which is not a long wait at this point, but it's going to be interesting because I'm not on the side of, okay, this is not going to impact Breath of the Wild 2 anymore. I have a feeling that there might be some large impact on what's going to happen in Breath of the Wild 2 and what is being set up for that game story-wise, so I don't know at this point. But now I want to talk about the timeline for all this. And by that, I don't mean the Zelda timeline, I mean the when will this game come out timeline, because Age of Calamity just kind of hit us like a truck. We didn't expect that to come out this year, but here it is, coming out very soon, very exciting. What about Breath of the Wild 2? When can we expect this game? Well, I want to tell you something very interesting I've seen unfold over the past few years. So, a while ago, there was a report I saw somewhere, I think it was Game Informer or Eurogamer saying that Nintendo plans to do yearly releases for Zelda games. They want to make Zelda a yearly franchise, kind of like how Mario is always there in some form. Not exactly how Ubisoft always has a big Assassin's Creed game every year, kind of like expecting a big new Zelda game every year. That's not going to happen. But a Zelda in some sense every year. And if you look at what's happened since 2017, they have delivered on that. In 2018, we had Hyrule Warriors Definitive. In 2019, we had Cadence of Hyrule and Link's Awakening. And in 2020, we have Age of Calamity. So they haven't disappointed on this yet. Zelda seems to be becoming an annual franchise in one way or another. And with the 35th anniversary next year, even if Breath of the Wild 2 doesn't come out this year, I still think it's going to stay annual. But let's say maybe Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out next year. Well, it's an interesting story right there, because if you would have told me that a few months ago, I would have said, yes, it better. It needs to. It's been in development for so long, and I feel like next year is a year they need to get it out. But now if you ask me that, I'd say Age of Calamity just happened. It seems too soon. This is too good to be true. Like, seriously, 2 big Zeldas a year in a row like that? So it's interesting because it's the same situation, but my viewpoint has shifted just because of Age of Calamity, which isn't even a game being developed by Nintendo, but Koei Tecmo. So it's a best case scenario for Nintendo right now. If you release the game next year, I'll be extremely happy that we got 2 great Zelda games 2 years in a row. And if you don't, well, we just had Age of Calamity, so I kind of have my fill for now. So Age of Calamity was a super amazing move on their part. It's genius in every single way, and I've talked about it before, how it's genius in every other way, but it's also genius in this way. So why would Breath of the Wild 2 come out next year, though? What's the evidence behind it coming out in 2021? Because there actually is a good amount of evidence for this, so let's go over it. The first piece of evidence is a development timeline, because this game most likely started development back at the end of 2017, making it almost 3 years since the start of development, which is a good amount of time to get this game ready. Now, the thing is, besides that, there's more. Next year is the 35th anniversary of Zelda, and even Aonuma's wording in the Age of Calamity reveal made it sound like the game was not far off from an update, saying a little bit more time until we can give you an update. And finally, I don't know if you've heard, but there are a lot of rumors going around saying that a new Switch model will launch in the first quarter of next year. And what better title to launch a Switch Pro with than the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild? I'm not going to go over all the details on the Switch Pro rumor, but from what I've seen, it seems to be pretty reliable, and I myself believe it. So if there actually is a new Switch coming next year, that gives a lot of credence to the idea that Breath of the Wild 2 might be there to launch with it. Now, the interesting thing is that the reports were saying Q1, which is the beginning of the year, of course. Now, I don't know about that. I don't know if Breath of the Wild 2 is going to launch in the first quarter of next year. I don't exactly see that happening. But maybe summer, maybe the holiday, that seems like a better time to launch this system, which is what I think might actually happen. You gotta remember too, we are in a global pandemic right now, so a lot of Nintendo's plans have already been pushed back. Mario 3D World, I'm sure at some point that was going to come out this year, but it had to be pushed back because pandemic has been pushing everything back for Nintendo, even if they don't want to admit it. So I still would not be surprised if a new Switch Pro launches next year, even if it is in summer or the holiday season, and if Breath of the Wild 2 is the game to showcase that new Switch. And this brings me to one of my final points of the day, which is, this is most likely going to be a condensed hype cycle. It's no secret that Nintendo liked to play 2020 close to the chest. We didn't know about many of their biggest games until mere months away from the release. Look at Paper Mario the Origami King, look at Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. They didn't like to tell us a lot about what was going on schedule-wise this year. We still haven't had a regular Nintendo Direct for over a year now. But it's understandable because there is a global pandemic going on right now. The thing is though, that might continue for now. That might go into 2021 and we might not know about Breath of the Wild 2 actually releasing until a few months before it's already released. This might be an accelerated hype cycle, which personally, I'm not a big fan of. I've talked about this before, but in a lot of ways, the journey is just as good as the destination for me. I love seeing the hype cycle for these games. I love seeing all the new trailers and theorizing about them and just getting super excited about these games just to wait and then someday have that wish fulfilled. With Nintendo's new release schedule they've been doing lately, I don't really get that. I get a few months of like hyper accelerated time to just be super excited about games, but I don't get the overarching feeling of, hey, there's something big happening soon, and I can look forward to this for the next year until it actually happens. Maybe it's just a personal thing, but that's how I feel, and I'm kind of worried that Breath of the Wild 2 might skimp out on all that. If the game does come out next year, they're running out of time to spread out the information and get us hyped over a slow period of time about it. They did show us a trailer already, and it's been like a year since the trailer, but I'm really hoping that we do see something new of the game later this year at the Game Awards. Now I know, don't get too excited. Nintendo has a weird history with the Game Awards, and sometimes showing the greatest stuff in the history of mankind and other times not showing any of their own stuff, but Zelda has a history at the show. They have the first Breath of the Wild gameplay was showed off there, and Breath of the Wild had its second trailer showed off there. Breath of the Wild has a really good history with the Game Awards, so I've been hopeful about it. I was hopeful about it last year that they'd show Breath of the Wild too, so maybe that shows you that they won't, because if I was wrong one year, maybe I'm wrong the other year, but there's a chance. There's a small little itty bitty chance, and maybe. But I do think there's a strong case for Breath of the Wild 2 hitting next year, which is insane because we're about to get Age of Calamity, and if they actually do some kind of collection for the 35th anniversary of Zelda, it's a good time to be a Zelda fan. But anyway, yeah, time will tell, and Age of Calamity will most certainly tide us over. Thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm very thankful for all the support for these discussion videos we've been having lately, just because it's been pretty stressful around here lately. Haven't been able to do a lot of scripted big production videos, but we will get back on those soon. Age of Calamity next week. I have some updates for you on that as well that are going to be coming out very soon. But yeah, thank you for watching, and subscribe if you liked the video. But yeah, my new setup is almost ready. If this video had pretty echoey audio or anything, that's probably why, because the room is still a little empty. We're getting that sorted out. Should be good really soon. And yeah. And again, as always, you can follow me on Twitter at XenogamerYT for updates on the channel and me and everything. And you can also join the Discord server. We have a whole community over there. It's great. I'm there. A lot of other really cool people are there. You could be there too, you know? You could be a cool people too. And finally, you can check out my Twitch channel. We stream there about every Friday, so that's a really fun place to be as well. Again, thank you guys so much for the support on the videos lately. It means a lot to me, and I'm just excited to see what's gonna happen next. Age of Calamity next week. Let's go. Oh, I'm so excited. And remember to have a great, fantastic, wonderful day. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.